Have you ever noticed that things seem to fall apart right after you tell someone about your plans? Everything felt aligned. You had clarity, motivation, and momentum, but then you shared your dream, and something shifted. Suddenly, you lost steam. Doors began to close. The progress stalled. It's not a coincidence. There is a spiritual law behind this that many people overlook. There is power in silence. Keeping your plans to yourself isn't fear. It's wisdom. It's protection. When you keep your vision quiet, you're safeguarding it in a sacred space, away from negative opinions, limited perspectives, and spiritual interference. Just like a seed freshly planted in soil, your dream needs to remain hidden, watered, and nourished, not exposed. Nobody digs up a seed every day to show it off. It grows where no one sees it. The Bible makes this clear. Proverbs 21:23 says, "Whoever guards his mouth and tongue keeps his soul from troubles." This isn't just advice on avoiding gossip or arguments. It's a powerful principle. When you speak too soon, you expose what is still in its spiritual formation. And anything in formation is fragile. It's still aligning with divine timing. It needs silence to survive. When you share your plans too freely, you open doors, and not everyone who listens is meant to be part of your vision. Some may doubt, others may envy, and some may unknowingly release words that damage your confidence. Words carry energy. And words spoken with fear, disbelief, or envy can weigh heavy in the spiritual realm and weaken your faith. That's why silence is an act of faith. It says, God is working even if no one else sees it. Silence allows you to hear, to perceive, to discern. The noise of the world distracts, but the stillness of God directs. Often, the urge to speak comes from a hidden need for validation. You want someone to say, "That's a great idea," or "You're on the right path." But when your confidence depends on human approval, you'll crumble the moment someone disagrees. Your calling doesn't need an audience. It needs your obedience. Matthew 6:6 says, "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you." This verse speaks not only of prayer, but of all sacred processes. What begins in secret will be rewarded in public. But if you expose it too soon, you risk losing divine protection. Also remember the example of Mary, the mother of Jesus. After receiving a divine message from the angel, she didn't run to tell everyone. She didn't explain herself. Luke 2:19 says, "But Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart." She held on to the promise in silence. She understood that some things are too sacred to speak out loud, not because of fear, but because of reverence. Your dreams are like seeds. They need dark soil, not spotlights. They require hidden growth, not public display. Not everything God is doing in your life is meant to be shared. Some promises are meant to be nurtured privately, protected by prayer, and covered in faith. If this message is resonating with your spirit, I invite you to declare this out loud in the comments. I move in silence. Let this be your prophetic statement of maturity, wisdom, and alignment with God's process. Silence isn't weakness, it's focus, it's discipline, it's protection, and when the time is right, your fruit will speak louder than any announcement. Until then, guard your purpose, protect your vision, trust in God's timing. Now we'll look at something that's often hidden beneath our words. The real reason many people rush to share their plans. It's not always inspiration. Often, it's insecurity. Behind the urge to tell others what we're planning lies a silent cry. Tell me I'm doing the right thing. We want encouragement. We crave affirmation. We hope that someone will say, "That sounds amazing," so we can believe it's real. But here's the truth. The more your path depends on the approval of others, the less strength you'll have to follow it. It's easy to feel confident when others agree with us. But what happens when they don't? What happens when they doubt your vision, criticize your idea, or simply remain silent? Suddenly, your energy fades. Your motivation weakens. Your steps slow down. Why? Because you were feeding your purpose with external validation, not inner conviction. The plans God gives you are meant to be cultivated in intimacy, not performed for a crowd. What's conceived in your spirit must be nurtured in the secret place. Sir, not on public display. That's why your dreams feel fragile when you share them too early. They weren't meant to be exposed yet. Matthew 6:6 says, "But when you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. Then your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you." This is a divine key. What is formed in the secret is blessed by heaven. It's not about hiding from people. It's about honoring the process. When you expose something sacred too early, you risk weakening it. Sometimes we feel like we have to explain ourselves. We want others to understand our decisions, to support our vision, or simply to acknowledge our growth. But not everyone will understand, and not everyone needs to. You're not called to convince people. You're called to obey God. When you speak before the right time, you also open yourself emotionally. You give others access to something that's still being shaped. And if they speak against it, even unknowingly, their words can plant seeds of doubt in your heart. Those seeds can grow into hesitation, confusion, or even abandonment of the plan. True spiritual maturity means recognizing when to speak and when to be still. Some things are meant only for you and God. Some instructions are for your growth alone. Not everything God shows you is for others to know. And here's the truth. Not everyone is qualified to hear what God is doing in your life. They may not have the faith, the perspective, or the spiritual discernment to understand. And when you share something divine with someone who doesn't carry divine vision, their limited view can shake your belief. That's why silence is not weakness. Silence is discernment. It's knowing that your future is too valuable to be placed in the hands or mouths of those who can't see it. Luke 2:19 says, "But Mary treasured up all these things and pondered them in her heart." Mary received a divine message, a revelation of world-changing magnitude, but she didn't run to broadcast it. She didn't seek validation. She didn't explain herself. She treasured it in her heart. Why? Because she knew that what God was forming within her required protection, not promotion. Let that sink in. Sometimes the most sacred revelations are the ones you say nothing about. So if you feel the need to speak, pause. If you want someone to approve of your path, ask yourself, is this about my ego or my calling? Because if it's from God, it doesn't need applause. It needs action. When the time is right, God will bring the right people, the right opportunities, and the right spotlight, not for your glory, but for His. Until then, be faithful in the secret. Build without noise. Let your silence be a sign of trust. Now we'll explore a truth that bridges both the spiritual and the scientific. Speaking your plans too early can actually reduce your chances of success. It may sound surprising, especially in a world that encourages you to declare it out loud, but there's deep wisdom and solid evidence behind staying quiet. Studies in psychology and neuroscience have shown that when you talk about your goals and receive praise or affirmation, your brain releases dopamine, the chemical associated with pleasure and achievement. In other words, when you say your plan out loud and someone says, "Wow, that's great," your brain feels as if you've already accomplished something, even when you haven't lifted a finger yet. This is called premature reward. The brain gets its satisfaction early, and your motivation to act begins to fade. What was supposed to be fuel for action gets used up in the excitement of being heard. That's why so many people announce their goals, feel hyped, and then do nothing. You burn energy in the exposure, not the execution. Napoleon Hill said, "Tell the world what you intend to do, but first show it." That's not just a quote, it's a mindset. Real commitment doesn't begin with announcement. It begins with action. You don't have to talk about it to Make it real. You have to build it. When the results come, they'll speak louder than any words ever could. The same principle applies in the spiritual realm. When you speak about what you're trying to manifest, attract, or pray for too early, you begin to leak your spiritual energy. The vision that was clear becomes scattered. The focus that was sharp becomes diluted. And often, it's not just your energy that's affected, it's your faith. Because once you speak it, you open the door to outside opinions. And the questions begin. Are you sure that's realistic? What if it doesn't work? Didn't someone else already try that? Is this really from God? Those questions might come from well-meaning people, but they plant seeds of doubt. And where doubt grows, faith struggles to survive. That's why keeping your plans private is not just smart, it's spiritual warfare. You're shielding your vision. You're creating a sacred space where your ideas can grow in strength, maturity, and direction, away from noise, pressure, and outside interference. And if you're starting to see the power in this, I want to invite you now. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it with someone who needs this message. When you do that, you're helping us spread truth, faith, and purpose to people all around the world. You're becoming part of a movement that values spiritual growth over public approval. Back to the message, silence is strategy. And if you're serious about seeing results, you need to protect your energy, your time, and your vision. Proverbs 17:28 says, "Even a fool is considered wise if he keeps silent, and discerning if he holds his tongue." There is power in not speaking. It's not emptiness, it's presence. It's restraint. It's alignment with something greater than your emotions or your need to be seen. Think about it. The greatest miracles in the Bible didn't come with announcements. Moses didn't tell the Israelites how he'd split the Red Sea. He just followed God's command. Joshua didn't explain how Jericho's walls would fall. He simply obeyed the instruction. Jesus didn't publicize his miracles before doing them. He walked with quiet authority. The power was in the obedience, not the performance. The same is true for you. Don't seek attention, seek alignment. Don't speak for applause, move in silence. Let the fruit speak for you. Let your faith be seen in what you build, not what you talk about. The silence you choose today may be the shield that protects the breakthrough you've been praying for. Now we're going to look deeper, beyond what's visible, into the spiritual realm that affects your life more than you may realize. Because here's a truth few people talk about, but every spiritually aware person must understand. When you speak, it's not just people who hear you. The enemy hears you too. You don't live only in the physical world. There's a spiritual dimension constantly interacting with your reality. And in that invisible realm, your words carry weight. They're signals, they're codes, they open doors. So when you speak about your goals, your purpose, or your next move, especially if God is the one who planted it, you're not just sharing, you're revealing. And what is revealed too soon is often vulnerable. Many people don't realize this. They wonder why everything seems to fall apart right after sharing a vision. They pray, they plan, they believe. But something interferes. The problem? They expose the process too early, without spiritual covering. And in doing so, they unintentionally handed over sensitive information to forces working against them. John 10:10 says, "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy," and that thief, the enemy of your purpose, doesn't need full access to attack. He just needs an opening, one clue, one statement, one careless word. And suddenly, resistance increases, discouragement intensifies, confusion multiplies. How? Because your words gave him a map, a casual conversation, a poorly discerned social media post, a shared idea with the wrong person. They may seem harmless, but in the spiritual realm, they broadcast your movement. And once your movement is known, opposition is activated. It's not paranoia, it's awareness. Spiritual maturity means knowing that not everything is for everyone's ears. Some things must remain between you and God, at least until they're spiritually secure, covered in prayer, and ready to be seen. Ecclesiastes 3:1 says, "There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens." There's a time to speak, and a time to stay silent. The danger isn't just in speaking, it's in speaking out of season. Even the right thing said at the wrong time can attract the wrong kind of attention. Silence, then, becomes a spiritual wall. It guards your vision. It protects your process. Because what's kept in the secret place can't be touched. The enemy can't fight what he doesn't know. He can't destroy what's hidden under the shadow of the Almighty. Psalm 91:1 says, "Whoever dwells in the shelter of the Most High will rest in the shadow of the Almighty." That shadow, that shelter, is more than comfort. It's protection. And that's where your plans must remain until they're mature enough to survive outside exposure. Speaking too soon is like pulling a seed out of the ground before it has roots. It may have potential, but it's not strong enough yet. The soil of secrecy was meant to strengthen it. The season of silence was meant to shield it. And here's the key: the enemy is strategic. If you give him a map, he will set traps. If you hand him your schedule, he'll create delays. If you give him your plan, he'll stir up confusion around it. That's why discretion is not weakness, it's warfare. Even Jesus, with all his divine power, often withdrew before major miracles. He avoided unnecessary crowds. He gave clear instructions. Don't tell anyone. Why? Because exposure attracts resistance. And the sacred must be shielded until the time is right. You don't need to explain everything you're doing. You don't need to prove anything. When God wants it to be seen, He will reveal it, and no enemy can stop it. So until then, walk in wisdom, guard your ideas, cover your vision, pray before you speak, ask before you share. Let silence be your spiritual armor. And remember, what the enemy can't hear, he can't hinder. We've now reached the moment to embrace a truth that many resist. Silence is not weakness. It's spiritual strength. It's not fear. It's discernment. It's not passivity. It's power under control. In a world that teaches you to speak up, promote yourself, and prove your worth, choosing silence is a bold act of faith. Because when you truly know who you are in God, you no longer need to announce what you're doing. You simply do it. You no longer seek validation. You no longer chase applause. You understand that your obedience matters more than people's. Opinions Proverbs 13:3 says, "He who guards his mouth preserves his life, but he who opens wide his lips shall have destruction." That's not just poetic language. It's a spiritual law. What you protect with your silence, God protects with His power. What you expose too early, you risk losing to resistance, confusion, or spiritual warfare. Have you noticed that the most spiritually mature people, the ones who walk in peace, purpose, and quiet strength, don't talk much about what they're doing? They don't need to. Their life speaks for them. Their fruit speaks louder than their words. Because fruit doesn't argue, it simply proves. That's where true spiritual authority lives. Authority isn't found in announcing every plan. It's found in trusting God's process, even when no one else understands. It's found in working quietly while the world watches someone else make noise. But when the time comes, and it will, God will reveal what He has been building in you. Matthew 6:6 reminds us, "Your Father who sees what is done in secret will reward you openly." That's a promise, not a maybe. You don't need to rush your process or explain yourself to anyone. If God gave you the vision, He'll also give you the platform at the appointed time. But until then, your job is to protect it, build it, pray over it, and above all, keep it sacred. Many people lose their blessings not because of lack of talent or faith, but because they talked too soon. They exposed something that wasn't ready. They handed the enemy a map. They invited opinions before, seeking divine direction. But that doesn't have to be your story. Today, you can make a new decision to live differently, to grow deeper, to move in silence. Not because you're hiding, but because you're protecting what's holy. And if this message has spoken to you today, if you feel God pulling you toward a deeper level of wisdom and spiritual discernment, I invite you now. Subscribe to this channel, like this video, and share it with someone who needs this word. When you do, you're helping spread light, faith, and divine alignment to hearts all over the world. You're joining a movement of people who walk in quiet power, grounded purpose, and kingdom vision. Remember this: God honors those who honor His timing. The enemy can't destroy what he doesn't know, and the world doesn't need to hear your plans. It needs to see your fruit. So guard your calling, protect your process, stay in alignment, and trust that when the moment comes, God will make it undeniable. Let the silence be your strategy. Let your obedience be your strength. Let your life preach louder than your words. Don't talk, build, don't explain, manifest. Don't rush, trust. Because when it's time, the fruit will speak, the vision will shine, and all the glory will go to the one who gave it.